Hi, everybody, and welcome to episode 6 of our Professional Perspective series of What Cause Inspires You. I'm your host, Alicia Gupta, and today I have with me Seneca Dunmore. What Cause Inspires You is a podcast founded for students ages 13 to 21 to be able to share the service they're doing in their communities. We recently launched our Professional Perspective series in order for experts in their field to give insight to our youth about how to make a stronger impact and accelerate social justice movements. Coined the pint-sized powerhouse for her infectious energy, audacious tenacity, and indelible ability to captivate audiences through relevant and riveting storytelling, Seneca is an international speaker, global influencer, power coach, philanthropist, and advocate of all of Africa. Seneca has traveled to 5 continents, more than 40 countries, and has been featured in national and international publications like the New York Times, Essence Magazine, and Afrocella. Ms. Dunmore has given talks to foreign dignitaries in countries as far as South Africa and some of the most distinguished institutions of higher learning like the University of Ghana and the University of Houston. Seneca is on her track to complete her doctorate in education administration with a focus in higher education by winter of 2021. This podcast series will be available on Spotify and YouTube under Humanity Rising Voices. Ms. Dunmore, we are super thrilled to have you with us today. Are you ready to begin?
Yes, thank you.
So why don't you start off by telling your educational endeavors are in 3 different disciplines: science,
Yes.
technology, and education. How then did you become an international speaker and coach to other speakers?
Yeah, that's always the $1,000,000 question that I'm asked because, I did my bachelor's at Tuskegee University in biology, my master's at Texas Southern University in information technology, and I'm on track to complete my doctorate. But when I was at Tuskegee University as a freshman, I started having digestive issues that just kind of came out of nowhere. And I was going to see all these different gastroenterologists, trying to figure out what was wrong, and nobody can make a diagnosis. That led to years of throwing up, and one day going in for a simple outpatient procedure, the endoscopy, where they stick that long tube down your throat to see if there's any cancer or polyps. Well, they couldn't get the tube down because my throat was so strictured. So they tried to dilate it and it ruptured. So I woke up from the procedure with a ruptured esophagus, bleeding internally, and now being surrounded by all these different doctors and anesthesiologists and surgeons. And they're telling me, well, Ms. Dunmore, we've got a problem. We noticed you had a really tight stricture. We tried to dilate it and it ruptured. And now you're bleeding internally. We need to get you into surgery. And so I'm literally rushed into surgery. I come out of surgery 3 hours later, completely blind. And and about 4 days later, my sight came back after I was moved out of ICU into my own room. And then that night I was accidentally overdosed on morphine by one of the nurses.
Oh my God.
So I always tell people, like, you just can't even make this stuff up. And so, but for years I never talked about what I went through because I was ashamed of it. And on some level, every time I talked about it, I had to relive it. And so one day I was moving back from DC to Houston and joined a new church and decided to kind of give my testimony one day. And my women's ministry director was like, oh my God, you need to tell more people that story. And literally, I kept being invited to different conferences and women's workshops and retreats to tell my story. And a light bulb went off one day, like, why not get paid to speak? And literally, I walked away from my corporate job in October of 2014, started my motivational speaking business in 2015. And by 2016, I was on international stages.
Wow. That is such a story to tell people. I mean, it went from digestive problems to motivational speaking, which is amazing. But you never know where life is going to take you. I think that's for sure. But being able to convert something that happened to you, a personal experience, and create that into something good for other people, I think that's just astronomical. Like, that's amazing.
I always tell people my calling, I didn't find it, it found me. And so I would have 100%. Never thought, I would have never signed up to go through all that to say I'm a motivational speaker, but that is just how it happened.
Wow. I mean, I think I can relate on a certain sense. I actually just came back from another webinar where I was talking about my experience with cyberbullying, and kind of the same sense, right? I didn't want to share my experiences at first. I was ashamed. I was embarrassed of it.
Yeah.
And then I got to this point where I was like, I think more people need to hear about it. But
absolutely.
as a 18-year-old girl going to college as an undergraduate next year, I think I can learn from people like you, Seneca. It's
Yeah,
amazing what you're doing as a motivational speaker,
thank
and
you.
I hope it reaches a lot of people. So you obviously volunteer a lot, but aside from running your own business, how important is volunteering and giving back to the community to you?
I think everybody has a moral, a civic, and a fiduciary responsibility to give back. And, to give back to the communities that raised you,
Mhm.
but also to give back abroad. So, in 2012, I started volunteering with an organization called Bethel's Global Reach. And since then, I've been on about 5 international missions with them, mostly in Kenya and Angola. And it has been the most phenomenal experience. I always tell people, you don't know true love until you're helping someone who has nothing to give you in return.
Oh
Right. So
yeah,
when we go out
yeah.
there, we're spreading, it's a nonprofit 501c3 organization. And so we're going out there spreading the gospel of Jesus Christ by way of providing humanitarian relief. And a lot of that relief comes in the form of these medical camps and healthcare camps where different tribes can receive access and get access to healthcare that they otherwise wouldn't have access to. And I absolutely love it. I tell people, as long as God keeps me healthy and sane, I will continue to do that for the rest of my life, because I know that I'm called to do that work. And
Yeah.
I understand what he means when he says, many are called, but few are chosen. And I feel like I'm one of the called and chosen few. So I love it. I feel like everybody has a responsibility to give back. And even if you can't, go as far as Africa and, South America and all these, beautiful places, you can serve right here in your communities. There's tons of communities right now because of COVID-19 who are struggling, and lots of single moms who are trying to figure it out, and kids at home who've never been at home, And so, volunteerism can come in many forms. So it doesn't have to be something as, historic and philanthropic as, traveling the world. It can be something as simple as, helping your neighbor across the street who is, stressed and overwhelmed and needs a helping hand.
Yeah, yeah, and for sure, giving back definitely starts within the house, right? The more you
Absolutely.
give back, starting with your own family members, you get that sense of satisfaction, and you start growing that sense of satisfaction of just helping other people without getting
Yes,
anything in return, like you mentioned.
that's right.
And I think the more people start to do that, the more they're gonna realize that it's an amazing thing to do.
Oh, very much
And
so.
we can go into a community effort of everyone helping each other.
Yes,
But Seneca, you definitely have touched your toes in a lot of different sectors, be it medical sectors, the
yes.
motivational speaking, humanitarian aid. And it's definitely taken you internationally. But where has your volunteer experience taken you, either physically or emotionally for you?
It's very personal to me,
Hmm.
because it's something, because I've served in places where individuals need health care and don't have access to it. And it's very personable for me because I know what it feels like to sit in a hospital, not have insurance, not know how you're going to pay for these tests, but needing the help, right? And
Yeah.
knowing like I
Oh yeah.
can't walk away. I need this service. And I don't know what I'm going to do, but I'm just going to make it happen. So I know the vulnerability and how desperate that feels, because I've been in that place before. When I had surgery, I did not have insurance at the time. So when I walked away from that hospital, I walked away with a $74,000 medical bill on top of, the anesthesia and, medical, prescription drugs and things like that. So, I mean,
Wow.
I was walking away with almost an $85,000 bill. And I wrote a letter one day to the hospital and told them that, hey, I don't have the money to pay. And they wrote it all off. So,
Wow.
that was
Wow.
something I never had to pay. And so, because of moments like that, I'm so grateful. And I feel I have, a duty to just give back. And emotionally, it really touches my heart. It's more than just physical. And I've been all over the world. I've been to Asia, India, South America, Europe, um,
Yeah.
you name it, I've been there. But, you know, it, every time I step into those places, I come with my full self and my full heart, because it's not for the faint of heart. It really isn't. Like, volunteerism is not for the faint of heart. You really have to have a level of selflessness and altruisticness about yourself, where you can look at someone else and, despite their current situation, still want to, give
Yeah.
more than
For
than
sure.
you're asked of. So yeah, so it's one of those things where it's more than, it has taken me more places than just physical, emotionally, psychologically. It has it puts me in such a beautiful place, and I love it.
Wow. That's amazing. And I think your story kind of goes back to the golden rule, right? Do unto others as you would want done to yourself. So when you
Most definitely.
experience that selflessness of the hospital people helping you through that bill and recovering you free of cost, I
Yeah.
think it's only right. And what you've done exactly is to give back to the communities that need that help
Yes,
without being able to give anything in return.
absolutely.
But kind of changing notes here, we're in the middle of a global pandemic and a
Yes.
bunch of civil unrest, especially in the United States. So,
Yes.
how has that affected you personally and professionally? And what are you going to do to affect change in your immediate community?
It has definitely, I think, taken a toll on everybody, right? We're all dealing with a new normal. And I think there's a lot of people who are expecting things to go back to the way they used to be pre-COVID. But I think we're just going to be operating in a whole new vein moving forward. And we just have to understand and realize that it has definitely affected me emotionally and physically. I mean, for a couple of weeks I had trouble sleeping, and I never have trouble sleeping. So that's how I knew it was really getting under my
Hmm.
skin. I was
Yeah,
having trouble sleeping. I live right downtown in Houston, and so to actually see with my own eyes the rioting and the fires and police just swarming everywhere. I mean, it just had me on edge for weeks. And you know um while I've been doing my doctorate, I did an internship with the Center for Justice Research on the campus of Texas Southern University. And so they are all about, bringing justice and you know, to our communities. And so having a chance to work with them and to do research around, school to prison pipeline and, mass incarceration and, appropriate caseload numbers for public defenders and prosecutors, because most people don't understand that a lot of criminal cases never go to trial. They end up in,
yeah,
plea bargains and things like that. So just being able to do that type of work and was just amazing because I was on the front end of it. So it wasn't like I was just being a spectator and watching things play out on TV. It was like I was actually behind the scenes and doing the research and on the ground with the community. And so I think, to really affect change, you have to get involved. You really have to. You have
100%.
to get involved.
Yeah. Wow. And I think that's something more people need to hear, right? This goes
Right.
back to, I was talking to a few friends the other day, and they're like, yeah, we're socially woke. I think that's like the new term now. We're socially
Right.
woke. We're posting online. I'm
Exactly.
forwarding petitions to my friends. As great of a first step that is, it's
Yes.
simply not enough. And I love that the generation is taking that first step, where a lot of generations wouldn't. But we need to push the fact that you need to get personally involved. You need to start taking action, real tangible effects in your community. And that
Yes.
goes far beyond simply posting. While that is a good first step, more of us need to realize that getting your hands dirty is the way that change happens, and
Absolutely.
that real effect. Yeah. So, I
Absolutely.
mean, I think what we're spreading is amazing, and I hope it reaches as many people as possible so we can build together and rally up together a team of change makers.
Okay. Yeah. We have to. Yeah, we have to.
Yeah, for sure. So why don't you talk to us about one life-changing experience that you've had that's totally shifted your perspective on life and made you this humanitarian motivational speaker?
You know, I'll never forget. I was in Kenya. It was 2013, and I remember we were at church. It was a Sunday, and they were having like their church service outside. And so I remember my pastor asking their community and their pastors, "Hey, what do you need from us? What can we offer you? What can we help you? What can we give you?" And they said, "Could you pray for rain?" Now, mind you, we've got money, we've got
Hmm.
resources, we've got tons of, physical and tangible things, but they didn't want any of that. They simply wanted us to pray for rain because they were going through a drought. It had been a drought for like 2 or 3 weeks. And of course, they depend a lot on the land. And so the
Yeah.
crops were dying. And so that's their commerce. And I remember that evening once we left and we had dinner, and I just remember sitting outside sipping my tea and just finishing dinner, and um, just kind of looking out in the sky. And it was a clear sky, no clouds, and off in
Hmm.
the distance all I saw was this little bitty tiny cloud. And literally, I just remember I was restless and I was tired and I was just like, okay, I'm about to go to bed. And I just remember this still small voice saying, sit down. And so I sat down and literally everybody just kept getting up, retiring for the night, going to their, bedrooms and everything. And I was literally the last one left. And of course, the servants, the waitress and waiters, they can't leave until I leave. And so I'm out there just staring into this, into the skyline for hours. And I just watched this little bitty cloud roll in, and it got bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And next thing you know, it was a full cloud over our heads, and it just poured down raining.
Oh my God.
And when I say that was one of those most powerful moments, because I just remember how fervently we prayed at that moment for rain to come, And I mean, we all gathered around and it was hundreds of us just praying for rain. And literally that evening, rain came. And so that taught me the power of prayer. It taught me the power of community. It taught me the power of, like-minded individuals coming together around one common purpose and really manifesting that. So that, every time I see rain now, I get excited. So I'm never bothered by the rain. Here in America, we're always like, oh, the rain is ruining my plans.
Yep.
But for them, the rain is a sign of blessing. So every time I see rain now, I get excited. That moment just changed my life.
Wow. And yeah, whether you're spiritual or religious or want to believe in merely coincidences, I think these like higher being experiences are
Yes.
what brings the community together to some degree, right?
Yeah.
It's really just we're all working towards a common cause.
Right.
And once you see that cause being achieved, then you truly believe that when you put minds together, anything is possible.
Absolutely.
And I think that's the importance of rallying everyone together.
Yeah. Absolutely. You have to. It's just, it's teamwork, how they say makes the dream work, right? It takes more than just one person doing it by themselves. If everybody does something, then one or two people doesn't have to do it all, right? If we all put the plow, if everybody makes a contribution, if everybody gets involved, then none of us feel overwhelmed and overworked.
Yeah. And I think that's a perfect segue to one of my favorite mantras.
Okay.
Think big, act small. And so what I mean by that is have big visions, right?
Yes.
Think about the future in a big light, but act small, do your part and make everyone else do their part. And small things together will eventually amount to that big goal. But Seneca, what's one of your favorite quotes?
My favorite quote is by Frederick Douglass, and it says, "It's easier to build strong children than to repair broken men."
Wow.
And we're seeing that, I grew up in a community where, most people didn't grow up in a two-parent household. I was lucky and fortunate enough to grow up in a two-parent household. My parents had been married for 53 years, so I didn't know anything different. But when I looked around my community and I saw so many, broken men and so many broken children because they didn't grow up in that type of community, and they were always searching for something, right? They were always looking for that other piece of themselves, because we get our identity from our families. And so I love that quote because, again, if we start, while they're young, and teaching them, principles and to operate out of integrity and excellence, then we don't have to try to fix things now when they're already this big oak tree and it's hard to, make adjustments then. So yeah, that's one of my favorite quotes by Frederick Douglass.
Wow, that's amazing. And we do have time for one last question.
Sure.
What's next for you? What's next in your professional endeavors?
I definitely want to do more international, and because of COVID, things are kind of shut down right now. But, I recently started a coaching business, the Powerhouse Professionals Mentorship Mastermind Program. Yeah. And I love it because I'm teaching other speakers how to, get into the speaking business. Because for me, it has been absolutely phenomenal. And like I said, I've been on stages from New York to the coast of South Africa and everywhere in between. And so I'm teaching others how to do that. And I feel like that's one of the ways that I give back, because again, I've learned all these different tools and tricks and, resources and strategies. And I've been to so many different conferences and workshops. And so I've just kind of accumulated all this great information over the years. And now I'm giving that information away, and I'm showing people how to do the same thing so that they can live their best life. Because for me, I live for freedom, right? It's great to provide a great life for yourself financially, but it's even better when you have the freedom and the flexibility to just live your life on your terms.
Yeah. Wow. That's a great note to end on. And Seneca, I hope to follow in your footsteps. I think you're
Absolutely.
very inspirational, and I will be attending UT Austin in the spring, not the fall, unfortunately. But hopefully, if we're both at Texas at the same time, we can meet up and you can tell me more about all your adventures.
I'd love to.
Awesome. You can find more about Seneca's work on our Instagram platforms at seneca.dunmore and at Powerhouse Professional. That's all we have for today, unfortunately, but be sure to look out for more episodes on our professional perspectives on What Cause Inspires You series. I'm your host, Alicia Gupta, and I hope you all continue changing the world. Thank you.
Thank you.